Okay. We'll open the public portion of the meeting with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So right away, you're barely settled yet. Are you ready for showtime?
Oh, sure.
Oh, good.
They had a lot of time to think about it in the cars.
Okay, so for the
I
YouTube
am very
Nation, our
sorry that-
independent auditor from Mengel, Metzger, Barr and Co.
Thank you. I'm very sorry that I was a little late. Really, still not quite sure where it was sending me. It sent me someplace on the other side of Owego. And when I went by the casino, I said, this can't be right. So I put it back in my phone and it sent me over to Spencer Van Etten. So then I put it back in the phone and it sent me back to Owego. It said to go back to Owego. So I asked somebody and they said, no, just follow 86. It's right there. You can't miss it. So here I am. I did not use my Apple Maps to get here. So again, I apologize. And again, you should have in your board packets a copy of the basic financial statements. In addition to that, the internal control communication, and then also an executive summary. Okay, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the June 30th, 2022 audit of the basic financial statements. And again, we've completed the audit, and districts continue to face different challenges from one year to the next, especially right now when you take a look at state aid uncertainty. You've got some inflationary challenges. I'm sure many school districts you continue to face staffing challenges. So there's really a lot of different challenges that school districts are facing right now. Even the federal stimulus dollars that you received as part of the federal reaction to COVID, there can be some challenges with that because if you recall, those dollars are really one-time short-term stimulus funds, right? They will eventually go away, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But when we look at the financial condition of the school district, we really take a look at the reserves and fund balance. Okay, so the school district really ended the year in a very positive financial position. Okay, ended the year with a little over $4.2 million in reserves and fund balance. Okay, so again, that's very positive from a long-term financial planning aspect. And I think we work with about 70 school districts, and I would say that the majority of those school districts did end the year with some budgetary surpluses, primarily because of the way that you're utilizing some of the stimulus funds. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But overall, you ended the year in good financial position. Your overall equity increased from last year to this year by about $540,000, right? So the district was able to allocate some dollars into reserves. And when we look at the reserves, the school district does have a few reserves that are very, very beneficial, especially when we're looking at the long-term planning aspect of it. A couple of the reserves you have are the teacher's retirement contribution reserve, the employee retirement contribution reserve. Again, very good reserves to have because, as you know, anytime the rate goes up, that increase in the rate, if it's under 2%, you have to absorb that in the operating budget, right? So 1% increase, and you apply that to the teacher's salaries, right? The teacher's retirement system salaries, that becomes a much larger impact on your budget than 1%, right? And so these retirement contribution reserves are able to help smooth that out, right? So again, very beneficial reserves they have. And it's kind of interesting because, as you know, New York State basically says, here's the rate that you have to pay in order for the state to stay fully funded. And that rate's really based on a 5-year market return on the pension systems, right? And over the past few years, we've had some increases to that rate, and we've had some very, very strong markets, right? So now we're kind of moving in a different direction on the market side of it. So we're really watching those rates to see what could happen, okay? Because, very strong markets, small increases, and all of a sudden the markets are going in the other direction. How will that impact those rates? So again, that's where these reserves will really come into play as you look at your long-term planning. In fact, one of the things we talked a little bit about with the district is taking a look at the different reserves you have and really developing what we call a reserve plan. Okay, that really it'll talk about each of the individual reserves you have. It'll talk about maybe some target goals for those reserves, how those dollars get funded into the reserves, how you plan on using those reserves. It really does help support the local decision, because when we look at the reserves and the fund balance, it really is a local decision, right? New York State comes in, the controller does an audit. I think you're waiting for an audit right now from the state controller, and they provide their opinion. But with all of our clients, we really stress that the reserves and long-term planning is a local decision, because you folks really understand the finances and how things impact your school district. And that's what this reserve plan would do, is to help really support the local decision. Okay, so that's something I shared a couple of samples with Brent, and just to kind of take a look at moving forward. So again, some things to look at. Couple of the other reserves, you have the capital reserve. Again, very beneficial reserve, a little more restrictive than some of the other reserves you have, because as you know, the voters have to vote to create that reserve, right? And then the board will fund the reserve, but then the voters have to vote to use the reserve. Okay, so it's a little more restrictive, but it's very beneficial, because when you're looking to develop a capital project, right, the more capital reserve money you can use, that reduces the local impact, right, the impact to the taxpayers. So again, very beneficial reserves. We've seen districts where they're able to go out for a capital project and say, there's no impact to the taxpayer. So again, very, very beneficial reserves to have. So you're doing a nice job on the reserves. Again, just looking to maybe enhance some of the discussions on that with regard to a reserve plan. Okay, but overall, you're doing a very good job. You're also supporting your budget with reserves and fund balance. In fact, in 2021, you appropriated $125,000 against the levy. Okay, and in 21-22, you increased that to $300,000. Okay, because you're appropriating $200,000 from the retirement contribution reserve, and then $100,000 of fund balance. Okay, so you have a budget, right? You have your estimated revenues, and that difference is filled with appropriated fund balance and reserves. And again, $300,000 for a district this size is very manageable. Okay, because as you know, just to break even, you have to generate budgetary surpluses equal to that $300,000. Okay, so that's just something you want to monitor, and again, very manageable for a district this size. And I had mentioned that your overall equity went up about $500,000, right, from last year to this year, and you had appropriated $125,000. So that means you generated budgetary surpluses of about $650,000 on the revenue expense side. Okay, so again, you're doing a very good job. At the end of the year, in a good financial position. You're using your reserves and fund balance to help manage your budget. So you're doing a nice job there. Okay, but overall, you're doing a nice job. When we talk a little bit about the revenues and expenditures, again, you generated about $100,000 budgetary surplus on the revenue side. Primarily, you received more in a BOCES refund. You also had, I think, more in your BOCES refund, but then you received less in your state aid relating to BOCES. And again, the BOCES state aid is generated based on your expenditures for the BOCES. So again, that was a little bit lower than you had anticipated. Okay. And then on the expense side of the budget, you spent about 96.9, almost 97% of your budget. Okay. So, you spent about 97% of your budget. So that's something you'll want to monitor going forward. Again, in addition to spending some of those dollars, one of the challenges that you had this year is with regard to your employee benefit, okay, your health insurance program. And as you know, you're self-funded for your health insurance, okay? And as a result, you spent more dollars than you had initially budgeted, okay? And so you did overspend that line item. So that's something that you'll want to monitor. As you get closer to the end of the year, you'll want to maybe consider transferring dollars that are available in other budget codes down into that benefit code. But it'd certainly be something you want to monitor, okay? And as you know, you did go and created the new insurance reserve for employee benefits because you're self-funded. Very positive reserve to have. It really will help you manage some of the challenges with being self-funded. But yeah, you had a question.
Backtracking just a little, we spent 97% of the budget, which you said was cutting it pretty fine. Where are most districts and or where is ideal?
Well, that's a good question because how much you generate in a budgetary surplus really is an impact on how much you're appropriating in fund balance, right? Because if you're appropriating a lot of money in fund balance and reserves, right? So let's say you're appropriating $1 million, right? You need to generate a budgetary surplus of $1 million just to break even, right? You folks were at 125 last year, so you can be a little tighter and still generate some revenues. But 97% is you're doing a very good job in managing your budget. You're very close. Typically we see districts anywhere between 95 and 97%. So you certainly did spend the dollars in your budget this year. Okay. And again, with that, really, it relates to the stimulus funds too, because one of the unique items with the stimulus funds, and the state tries to confuse us because they said spend it in the general fund last year, but now this year they took it out and they put it in the special revenue fund, the special aid fund. So you folks spent a little bit more than $1.9 million in the special aid fund. So that fund is where your federal and state grant programs are housed. And you have the title programs, you have the 611, 619 programs that are traditionally spent there. But then you had an additional spending of about $1.3 million in federal stimulus dollars. Okay. And so again, those are those one-time dollars that, well, one time you have them for 3 years, but they will eventually go away, and you have a plan on how you're using those dollars. Okay. But the challenge becomes is when those dollars go away, how do you fit those positions back into the general fund, right? And in fact, you did do some of that. You did allocate some positions, some eligible expenditures from the general fund into the stimulus monies, right? And that should generate some budgetary surpluses because when those dollars go away, those folks will go back in the general fund, right? But then you also had some new positions that you created and new programs that you created in there. And so those positions, when those stimulus dollars go away, you're going to have some decisions to make, right? And again, the reserves, the fund balance, those are all part of the long-term planning of some of those decisions because you may find some of the new programs that you started are very beneficial. They're working, right? And if you're seeing that, you may want to roll those dollars, you may want to roll those programs into the general fund, right? And again, how you manage that really relates to those reserves and that long-term planning. Okay, so again, the stimulus money is great. It makes things look really, looks very positive. But when those dollars go away, you just have to make sure you're managing it. Okay. Couple of the other funds, just real quick. Your school lunch program. And you generated a positive $58,000 budget revenue expense in that particular program. So again, that typically is very challenging for school districts, the school lunch program. So just something to continue to monitor. You did refund some debt this year. So you did pull some old debt off the books at higher interest rate, put new debt on the books at a lower interest rate. So again, you had some activity there. Again, really nothing too unusual. But overall, again, when we look at the financial condition, we really focus on the general fund. And again, you did a nice job in managing that and ending the year with some budgetary surplus and allocated some of those dollars into the capital reserve. Okay. So that's a quick summary of the numbers piece of it. So the 60-page audit report. Again, we did issue an unmodified opinion, so that's really where you want to be when it comes to the financial statements. Okay. Do you have any questions on that just before I talk a little bit about the internal control communication? Okay. So the other document you have is the internal control communication. So just as part of any audit, part of the audit process is to sit down and interview different individuals, both in the business office, outside the business office, to really get an understanding of the different processes and procedures that you have in place. Okay. And it is part of, we sit there and we document, the different checks and balances. So, for example, how does somebody get entered into the payroll system, and then how does their time get reported to the business office and entered into what are those checks and balances? So we document all of those policies and procedures, and again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So that really is where you want to be. So that's very positive. We do have a few procedural items. I won't go through them. You had a chance to take a look at them. Certainly, if you have any questions on them, I can react to them. But a few minor procedural items to look to enhance the checks and balances that you have. So again, just continuing to look at that going forward. Okay, and in addition to these reports, you'll have a corrective action plan that the board will review and approve from management, and that'll eventually get filed with New York State as well. So again, overall, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. That's really where you want to be. Just some minor procedural items to enhance the checks and balances that we have. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
If you keep going in circles, you'll be back here.
I
I hope you drop breadcrumbs.
You too. Thank you. Maybe don't go over and talk about the bill.
Oh dear.
Okay. So next up is accepting the CPSE and CSE reports.
We didn't have any.
Yeah, I was just looking through. We didn't. Did you? Nada.
Wait, what?
CPSE and CSE.
What about it?
The report.
You didn't get the one I emailed to you?
Yeah, there was one on email.
That's the only one?
That's
The one
No, I had two that I needed to walk in.
We can. So do we? I
So-
mean, do we punt on that or do we accept them anyway?
But we will be quick. We'll have another
But you-
executive session if you don't mind.
Yeah, but you did get the ones that I emailed. Yeah,
Okay.
so there
Yeah,
were,
poor kids.
Okay.
yeah, there were,
Yeah, if you don't mind, if everyone has the time, we'll go back into executive session.
Okay, so we're skipping that.
Yeah.
Okay. Minutes of meetings, regular meeting, 10:20.
What we'll do is we'll-
So then we'll have to have another tiny little.
Right.
Okay, got it. Public to approve that. It would be a very
Yeah.
out of sync. We'll make it work. All right, minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Hope. This might be Holly's language on page 5. There's just some language that doesn't. We can still approve them, but McDaniel Baxter invite and we're the first New York in their division. So it's just there's a word. Yeah.
Which paragraph is that?
The cross-country paragraph, 1, 2, 3, fourth line down on the right side of the page.
Right, okay.
I think invite is just short for invitation.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, no.
Invite, and we're
You gotta
the
read the
first
whole
New York in their division at the illegal invite.
So we're just missing an apostrophe. Or,
First
yeah.
in New York? Were they first in the state? I don't.
I think invite is the name of the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not the issue.
Yeah.
McDaniel Baxter Invitational
Yeah.
is probably the official title of it.
But that's not the issue.
Right,
First
Uh-huh.
NY, it was first
New
NY.
York.
It shouldn't be first New York. We're the first team in their
Oh,
division at the illegal invite.
Yeah.
They weren't the first New York. I don't know. So Holly might be able to know what she meant
Yeah,
there.
and probably Kim White is one that actually wrote that paragraph. The coaches actually gave
Oh,
that
okay.
information.
Sure. So that'll be clarified and then they'll be just delightful.
Got it. Yeah.
All right. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Treasurer's report. And we do have to do that in appropriation status separately, or can we do? Okay, so is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report for end of October?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Nate. Your second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ray. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. And then the appropriation status report. Is there a motion to approve those? Thanks, Brent. Thanks, Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. On to warrants. First, the general fund 16. Anybody have any questions? We usually have one or two. Nada?
Well, I'm skimming through.
Ah,
I don't see any highlighting.
I know.
No.
Except Mike like has to highlight absolutely everything so that nothing is highlighted.
United States Postal Service, is that the update of the postage machine?
Yeah. Postage machine.
Because it seemed to be a pretty hefty amount, 5,000, yeah.
Yeah.
We used to do it one, but then of course the cost of everything has gone up.
I think that the last one lasted maybe 8 months or so, for 5,000.
Yeah. The New York State School Boards Association, I assume that's dues, 6,200.
That would be his own.
That was all I found.
Moving on to the federal funds, number 7. Sorry, I'm out of order. I'm going by the agenda.
You'll be all right.
Thanks, Hope. For your affirmation. And then school lunch fund number 5. Is there a motion to approve the warrants?
I will move.
Thanks, Ray. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Visitor time. Hi, visitors. We'll go, Mr. Yarrington first.
Okay, I'll be brief. I just came to thank the board and the superintendent and the custodial staff for allowing me to replace the markers that I had on the memorial trees that my children in my sixth grade class and my garden club members and so on planted. Some of them are not next to the trees that they were, where they were planted because those trees are no longer around, but all the plaques are in place at various trees and so on. So I just say thank you to the board and to everybody. I checked with the superintendent first and he referred me to Lonnie Seeley and Lonnie referred me to, I think it was Jim Winterman, I'm not sure. But anyway, one of the custodial staff, actually two of them, Harry Vasquez and his partner helped me put them in and so on. So thank you. That's all I wanted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your stewardship. Mr. Lindridge, you're next.
I can start off.
Oh, yeah.
If you recall, if you had a chance to look over my board report, I talked about the Harvard Great Grant and, the project working in developing prosthetic legs. And rather than me try to explain it, which I don't have all the details, Mr. Lindris was very kind in coming and talking a bit about it himself.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond, for inviting me. Thank you, board, for taking a few moments to listen to me. There's some guy in the parking lot said he was going to kick my butt on the way in. I took his leg and I wish him luck. So, Mr. Gelder, if you would, thank you.
And I saw lives change. I saw my students grow. I saw them be more conscious of being altruistic. So I've seen a lot of gratitude grow in them. Personally, I got a chance to see them gel and work together as a team.
The greatest thing that happened to me is just watching my students. It's amazing how we've seen people walk for the first time in years. They've regained their dignity or their self-worth, getting a fulfilled life of normalcy back, if you will. But, watching my students just break out of their shell, and my students' lives have been impacted and changed by the people that they were serving.
I think I saw what true poverty is. I feel grateful to be able to go on this trip, and I never thought as a person born in the United States would be able to help the people, and I'm eternally grateful to be able to do it.
I think it's important to help people as much as we can. We have resources that they're not able to have, and as we saw during this, it was a great need for them, so it was pretty exciting to get to help them. I'm trying to see can I do something more to help more people?
La verdad es que Dios me dio una segunda oportunidad. Bueno, estuve a un hijito, la verdad. Me siento feliz por una parte, primeramente con Dios, y después con ustedes, por haberme traído. De lo que más anhelaba yo, para tener una nueva vida, un regalo, es como una sorpresa.
I thought the most amazing parts where not only did we give them that ability to walk again, but then they made a public confession of their sins. And by doing that before all these people and before Christ, they entered into the kingdom. I gave them the ability to walk, but Christ gave them the ability to walk forever.
I saw a lot of people that had a lot of needs, and I saw a lot of people just hoping and wishing that they could be the ones to get a leg. It feels amazing. It feels wonderful.
Estaba hablando por el celular, fuera de mi casa, y pasaron dos personas en motocicleta, y ya uno de ellos quería sacar el celular, entonces pedí que no me disparara. Le agarré la mano y empezamos a luchar. Tocaron disparos y lo empujé, y cuando salí corriendo a unos metros me caí y me di cuenta de que había recibido 3 disparos en mi pierna derecha. Luego logramos unidades para que pudiéramos encontrar una pieza.
Mother Teresa was once asked, how do you feed all these people? And then she said, one person at a time. And that one person that you start with is yourself. Because once you understand what you want to do and you understand the reason behind what you do it, you become infected. And that infection, what it does is it infects others around you. So when you want to change the world, you start with yourself and then you infect others around you.
When I saw the young guy, that was really impressive to me because he was really young to go through that experience. So I'm happy that we get to help him. I know we have to work hard on building more legs so we can give more people. And that's all I'm thinking about right now, going back and working hard so we can come back and do it again.
I do it because it's my calling to be able to guide students, to help them to discover their own purpose.
Well, oftentimes I see very introverted students completely turn around. So now they become leaders in the school. I've seen their grades come up. I've seen their self-worth and self-dignity just change. You know, we often tell the kids that they can change the world. You know, we teach the kids math, we teach them science, we teach them English, we teach the core subjects. And tell the kids that they can change the world, they can be anything they want to be, but we don't have a course that teaches them how to do these things. And I teach them how to use those core subject matters to effectively change the world.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. So I believe education is about reaching down to grasp. It's important that you understand that my goal as a teacher is to have my students push themselves so they're uncomfortable, so that they get to a point of failure, because consequently failure is where we begin to learn. And I want you to experience that today. So I want you to all stand up just for a minute. We're going to do a little experiment. And before I get into the grant, we're going to do this experiment together. I want you to give yourself enough room to stretch your arms out. Yeah, we're not going to do a trust fall. What I want you to do is, I want you to turn to your left as far as you can go. I want you to pay attention how far you go. So go to the left as far as you can go. And pay attention to where you went to. And it's 100%, right? And then come back and relax. Shake your arms out, relax. So you just gave me your 100%, right? This time I want you to do the same exact thing, and I want you to go 5% further. So go ahead, do it again. I want you to go 5% further. Really stretch this time. Come on, push yourself. Push. Go 5% further. And come back, shake it out. How many of you are able to go 5% further? So here's my point. Did we not give it our all the first time? Or did you lie to me?
We stretched.
And I know you didn't lie to me. You gave it more the second time. So let's try one more experiment. And this one's a little weird, but I want you to clap as fast as you can for 4 seconds.
Wait,
Okay?
hold on. The first one wasn't weird?
No. So for 4 seconds, I want you to clap as fast as you can for 4 seconds. Ready? Go. Okay. Thank you. That really that had nothing to do with anything. I just bet Mr. Raymond I could get a standing ovation before the end of the evening, and he owes me $20. So this summer I got to meet Brian Copes. He was in the video. I met Brian. He's from Chickasaw School District in Alabama. They're an extremely poor school district. They're really in bad shape. I met him at the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools Let's Build It conference in Colorado. I spent 5 days out there with a group of people that are rabid educators. And each one of us at one point said, why am I here? We are all winners. Every one of us, the 52 of us that were there, are all winners from the last 4 years that Harbor Freight's been doing the grants. And we're all going, I don't belong here. Brian Copes was so infectious that he said, I want to do something. I want to take these legs and I want to build 100 of them this year. And I can't figure out how to do it. They're $800 a piece. Right now, there are 9 or 10 schools, including Candor, who are working on those legs to make 100 of those so they can go to Latin America this year. Harbor Freight was amazing in getting us funding to do that. Brian Cope started his organization about 10 years ago. They started taking shipping containers, turning them into classrooms with interweb access, and they were putting these shipping containers in third world or in developing countries. And then he realized after visiting these countries that 80% of amputations in the world are in developing countries. And an amputee needs to spend between $45,000 and $60,000 to get a leg. They make $5 a day in a developing country. That leg is beyond their reach. And if they can't work and walk around, they become a burden to their family and their society. And Brian saw the need, and he got together with Dr. Albert Allen, who's the Duke or the Lord of Crofton and the Duke of Touraine. He was also in the video, and they started figuring out a way, how do we do this? How do we help these people? And he developed this leg, and now he's asking for help. So far, they fit already 10 or 20 this year. We are currently in the process of building parts, and Harbor Freight gave us a little over $9,500 this year just to work on that project and another project, which I'll mention in a second. Part of this project, though, is to take the students that have worked on the leg, several students that have passports, and we're going to go to Latin America, and we're going to fit these legs to the recipients. Not only changing their lives, but changing our students' lives at the same time and showing, look, we can do something like build 200 of these tiny little parts. And right now I have 21 students working on this, and they've put in 71 extra class grades outside of class time working on these little parts. We're going to make 200 of these. And then we're going to take these along with the rest of the legs and go to Latin America and fit them. The other project we're working with 3 other schools. We're working with Matt Urbach from the school district U46 in Rolling Meadows, Illinois. We're working with Cesar Gutierrez, who is in Desert View High School in Tucson, Arizona. And we're going to work with Sean Burns in Roanoke County Schools in Cloverdale, Virginia, to build a custom-made machining device that'll fit into a Haas mini mill. Because one of those gentlemen, Matt, he didn't like the way the Haas mini mill device worked, and we're going to work together with them to build portions of that, along with that $9,500. So it's kind of 2 grants in one. Obviously, the leg is the big one. And my goal here, again, is to have my students reach their 105%. And again, I thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or violent disagreements, I'd be more than glad to hear them now.
Is that all, Tim? The black?
It's actually some carbon fiber built into that. So they're made with a 3D printer we don't have. They're like a $20,000 3D printer. And it does carbon fiber infused filament.
Do you know where you're going?
We do not. That's TBD. And if I don't get any students that have passports, then we have to take someone else. I already asked Mr. Amon if he wanted to go. And I don't know where we stand yet.
Are you going?
Depends on your answer.
Oh, I guess. Twist my arm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, get those students to get passports. That would be extremely powerful. I know it's not up to you.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
So you guys are machining the pins and what else?
We're machining just these pins.
Okay.
So there's a school, Matt Urbach School is doing the middle pieces. They have a 5-axis CNC, so they chuck it up and they're done 5 minutes a piece. We're doing this all manual. So I'm teaching a bunch of students how to use manual lathes. By the way, this has to be held to a 2/1000th of an inch tolerance. To put that in perspective, that's half the thickness of a sheet of paper. So we're right or we're wrong. And we've thrown out, we have 48 finished parts right now, and we've thrown out probably 10. So it's okay. I mean, part of learning is failure. And how did we fail? How do we fail? How do we fix it? And that's what we work on every day.
Wonderful. Excellent work, sir.
Thanks. I can take my leg back. You gotta find that guy in the parking lot. He's probably hopping around.
Look, give him outstanding.
Yeah. I'm a legit one. The one that we weren't tricked into. Yes, that's a hard act to follow.
I'm nothing nearly as tiring as that.
Yeah, follow that.
Just here representing the PTSA. We've already, we've had more meetings now. We've gotten some really great things done already. We've got some more things in the works. We had our trunk or treat, which was really successful. We had a ton of kids here, so that was great. Our first major fundraiser was also very successful. So we've got some funds now to plan more things for the kids. So we're really excited about starting to do more events for the kids. So our next meeting is Wednesday, November 30th in the elementary school. If anyone's interested in coming.
You guys are really getting after it. Good work. It's awesome to see more things happening already. So thank you. So considerations, acceptance of the independent audit report that we had to review, and I didn't catch his name.
Yeah, Tom Zuber.
Tom, that's right. That Tom presented to us. Is there a motion to accept the audit report? Thanks, Nate. Is there a second? Kate, we're ready to take the pick. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. On to the consent agenda. Including some additions from today. Is there anything that should be pulled out for separate consideration? And barring that, are there any questions on any of the items?
These numbers compare roughly with past years.
I'm not sure what you're looking at right now.
Oh, that's probably more of a Chris question, the outstanding taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably more of a Chris question.
It would be
She's
more,
at a
I haven't
conference.
looked back at previous years, and it was
Okay.
this year, last year, so I.
And I can't remember. Sorry. Comes with the gray hair.
She's very responsive if you shoot her a question. She's at a conference, right?
She's at a conference.
Yeah. All right. If there aren't any other comments on the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve it? All the items. Thanks, Hope. Second? Thanks, Josh. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Administrative reports. Mr. Raymond.
Well, I appreciate Steve coming in and sharing the opportunity that he provided for our students. So he talked about the big item here. Another item that I shared in my report is the digital safety assembly that we're having tomorrow for our students. And I don't know, for those of you who have been on the board for a while, I think you recall when the New York State cybercrime investigator came in and at that point, that day, he did the assembly for the students and also did an evening assembly. They're not doing the evening assembly this time. I have asked Craig Bennett to see if they'll allow us to record it, and maybe if they're okay with it, maybe we can post it on the website or some, put it out there some way for the parents to watch it, because I think it's valuable information for the parents as well. I know it's very hard sometimes for parents to get to evening assemblies. However, maybe it's something that they can watch as a webinar or something along those lines. Maybe it'll be easier for them to find the time to watch it. But yeah, they're coming in. They're going to have a conversation. We know that digital citizenship and cyber safety is a huge issue for everyone today, but especially for young people. Pete has a couple grades, I think 5th and 6th grades coming over, and I mean, even kids that young are really running into some significant issues with digital safety, cyber safety. So we think, you hate to think you got to have these conversations with kids, but you really do. So he's going to come in, hopefully teach these students how to protect themselves and be more safe online. And I think it's going to be a valuable opportunity for our kids to maybe learn a little something about some of the decisions they might make online. Hopefully maybe keep them a little safer. So I appreciate the New York State Police taking the time to come in and do that for us. And my last item is just, the junior and senior high winter concerts are coming up, and December 14th, this is the first year we're going to put them together. the same, if you want an evening of music. The junior high is at 6:30 and senior high is 7:30. We're hoping this might make it a little bit more efficient for parents who have kids in both concerts rather than having to come 2 nights, having here same night. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's a good idea and should be a nice evening. So please make it if you can. That's all I got.
Thank you. Pete, or Mr. Ahern.
The first thing I noted there was our visits and field trips that we just started this past month. I won't go through each of those, but I did note what each of them were. We have third grade going out here in a couple of weeks to in the beginning of December for their field trip as well. And then the remaining field trips in the building will happen in the spring. We have a lot of field trips going out in the spring. So it's nice to actually get back to doing those things and inviting authors and performers in for our kids. So that's for the field trips and the visits. Jessica alluded to it a little bit, but I did know a little bit about our relationship with PSA and some of the activities that they put on. And I want to thank Jessica and the whole PTSA for supporting our building and our kids. We raised a lot of money. We actually pulled this morning the winner of the prize for the Nintendo Switch with the $300 gift certificate. So the little girl came to the office this morning to claim her prize. And a lot of kids were motivated by that expensive gift that we offered. So it's a great idea for the PTSA to offer a nice gift for kids to work towards. And we'll see what happens in our spring fundraiser. We'll do another big fundraiser again. It was really nice to see those numbers come through. And we keep reiterating the fact. Some sixth grader said to me on Wednesday or Tuesday, he said, "Mr. Ahern, I wish I were you so I can have all that money we raised for the fundraiser." I said, "I wish that was me too, but that's your money that we use for field day and we use for Christmas activities that we're talking about and all these fun things for the kids." So it's important for the kids to know that's their money. That has nothing to do with the teachers or really PTSA. It's their money to spend and use, and we're going to do just that. So it's interesting the way kids think. But so thank you, Jessica, and the PTSA for that. My next item there is the Principals Council. Wayne and I attended the Principals Council. This is a good opportunity for all the middle school, high school, and elementary principals to get together at TST to talk about the challenges that we all faced, the successes that we are seeing in our buildings, and just to really have that professional dialogue with each other to problem solve. And I noted one of the major topics of discussion was the staffing issues that every district was facing, from non-instructional to instructional, bus drivers, custodians, all the way around. And, we're all facing that challenge. So we just bounce ideas off of each other of what they're doing in Newfield and Southern Cuga and Dryden and all of these different places. So we had really good conversations surrounding that. And it being a new principal, I'm really getting a lot out of that. And Wayne is the most veteran principal there, so he's co-facilitating. So it's nice to have Wayne right next door when I have these conversations that I have to have, and I can go right to Wayne about it. So, and it was apparent to me, and I'm sure it was to Wayne, that when we left that building after the conversation, we really have a great staff, great families, and great students here because our challenges are just so much different than the challenges other districts are facing. And I don't even want to say they're challenges, although they are to us, but compared to what other districts are facing, we've got it really good with our staff and our students and just everybody involved in the district. And it starts from the board on down to each and everybody in the building. So I want to thank everybody for creating this atmosphere that we have here on a daily basis. And I guess that's a good segue into that last item, the cafeteria piece. It's not just the free and reduced lunch piece. It's not just the cafeteria staff, serving kids, and it's them doing it with a smile, creating the relationships with the kids. You'll be amazed how many kids connect with our cafeteria staff on a daily basis. And I put the numbers in there, 240 students served in 25 minutes every single morning. It gets crazy in there in the cafeteria, but it's phenomenal of the efficiency the relationship building, the smiles, just everything goes really smoothly. So Michelle should be proud of her staff and what she has to offer our kids every single morning. And it's a quality breakfast. It's not just something slopped on a plate that's warm. It's a really quality breakfast that kids enjoy, and the numbers of 240 kids coming through that line really prove that. So thank you to Michelle and her staff. The big piece is the state assessment review. We had conversations in 3rd through 6th grade about our spring of 2022 state assessments. We had great conversations. The gap analysis that I discussed in the report was really beneficial for us to see how our cohort of students did with similar cohorts of students in our region, with schools that are like Candor, of our similar size. So we analyzed those reports. We looked at how each of our cohorts did against the other districts, and then the teachers on the back of your, or on the second page, whatever it looks like on yours, the teachers came up with, we wanted to leave with something tangible. We wanted to leave those meetings with something tangible, something we can count on for next steps. So that's what you see on the next page is our reflections as teachers. They develop those reflections and then what our next steps could be. The next steps will be outlined in detail with more specific strategies as we work our way through the year at grade level meetings, at data meetings, and at faculty meetings. So it was a great opportunity for teachers to get together to have those collegial conversations. And as I said in there, I'm really proud of those conversations and reflections that the teachers had. They were really wanting to do what's best for their kids, and we're really working hard towards having all of our conversations be data-driven and data-based. And that was really the focus of what those meetings were about. The last piece there, upcoming events. This time of year, we have a lot of events happening. So take a look at the times and dates there. And if you have any questions, that'll be it for my report.
It's probably gonna be cringy, but do you know the numbers offhand that were proficient on the state test? Or that'd be interesting to, I know.
Do I know the numbers?
The numbers that were proficient on, like percentages or.
So when we looked at our gap analysis, we knew going into that, we were at, the way the gap analysis works is it has an assessment item, the question, and then how our kids did compared to the whole TST region. So if it was a negative number, the greater the negative number was, the farther we were from proficient. And there was a lot of gaps in proficiency. So it didn't show very high proficiency. And we kind of knew that going into that conversation.
And Nate was saying that they didn't release the spring of 21 results, right?
The spring of 21.
Right, so we're like, this is year 0.
But what I did provide Pete and Wayne, I pulled the trend reports from the REC, the Regional Information Center. So we were able to get 22, nothing in 21, 20, but then we went back 19, 18, 17 as well. So at least they could see how their students did over the last 5 years, over the 6-year period. But yeah, 21 didn't have any results.
Thanks for.
But Hannah, was your question though more about where we, like what percent proficient ELA math for each grade level?
Yeah.
Okay, I do have that in a report, but do you want me to have that for next month?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Just, I mean, I know you gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to know.
Yep, but we do. I was trying to see if I could find it quick, but I couldn't find it in my drive.
Yeah, and then, have you guys looked at it relative to like what your iReady metrics are telling you to see if there's a correlation there and how they compare? Because iReady is national versus statewide.
Yes, and I actually talked to Sarah Loomis about this a couple of days ago, that when we took iReady, one of the reasons we took it is because it's supposed to correlate to the state test.
Okay.
So I think time will tell on that. I don't want to jump the gun on, because like Hannah said, this is potentially the first year of the state test. And then we'll see what the iReady scores look like in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. So we are at Mr. Gelden.
So we had Cybersecurity Month was October. So just like in all of your places of business, the thing that you always dread is that new password reset. Where you have to come up with a new password because we don't let you use the old password, and trying to educate people on trying to use good passwords, not just incrementing, adding another one or an exclamation point, because that's what everybody that is trying to hack you will do, because they'll just add an exclamation point. Or if it was 2019, they'll put 2022. So we tried to educate people a little bit about that, and it went swimmingly. Everybody was super happy to do it. But that, along with our two-factor authentication, I think really has set us up to sort of protect our data. Teachers, I think, are the biggest sort of weak spot in terms of access to our data, and that's schools are being hit more and more. It's in the news here and there, and we have a lot of data, and it's worth something to somebody. So we are doing everything we can to just make sure that we limit access where we can, only giving access when appropriate, and then making sure that it's secured. So we had a great Cybersecurity Month because, well, knock on wood, we didn't have any incidents. Along with that, EdLaw 2D it requires us to contact all of our vendors, anybody that we either purchase software from or use free software for, to get an agreement so that says that they will abide by our safety and security policies. And for free programs, it's very difficult because they have to look at and have their legal team sign off on it. So puts me in a really awkward place because teachers come to me and want to use a tool that they think is going to be great in the classroom, and I have to say, let's think about a different way to get the students access, or I just have to say no, because that's just the way things are now, because we can't just give students data to anybody under the sun anymore. So, and that's where anything that they say is free is never free, because they're getting your data and they're going to use it in some way, monetize it. So we are very vigilant on that. We have about 60 programs that we're using, and I have to contact each of those companies individually and have them agree to our privacy policy, which takes some time back and forth because they want to adjust it. I have to look at their privacy policies online and read through the 20-page documents to make sure that it's in compliance. So it takes a bit of time to work through those, but we're getting through them. Fortunately, we don't have to do that every single year. Try and do that every couple of years. And we also use the BOCEs to help us do that. So if we contract with BOCEs to purchase something, then I don't have to contact Google and see if I can get Google to sign our privacy agreement, which would be impossible. So they'll talk to BOCEs or the RIC, whereas they won't talk to individual districts. So that process, I think, is getting smoother. Companies are now know that schools are trying to contact them for these documents, so they're ready for it. It's not the lag time is not as great. So that process is continuing. I started it in end of September, and I still am continuing to contact people. And then I had a list in the consent agenda of devices that had end of life. They reached their end of life, and this summer our students took them apart, and we're giving them those parts instead of having to purchase parts brand new for students that break a screen. We have used parts, and I do still ask students to come in to work for a period or come in after school to sort of have a little skin in the game, to take care of their devices. But it's essentially free for the district to provide those repairs for most things. And most common things are the screens. We do have a few keyboards here and there, but for the most part, it's just broken screens. So those are going along well, and I see maybe one a week, maybe two a week, but for the most part, our students are very responsible with the devices. They take good care of them. I appreciate that. I appreciate students and families taking care of the computers.
Matthew Pullet for computers. I love it. Thank you. And no Holly. I'm sure she is watching something.
Something.
Yeah. And Mrs. Nichols.
All right. So the first item just gave you some information of our curriculum councils. I think we have all four. We're starting just with the four core content areas. So ELA, math, social studies, and science. I think we have our representatives identified and they've agreed to participate. And the administrators have also agreed to participate and be facilitators. And it really works out nicely that we have content specialists, the variety that we need. So Sarah Loomis is going to be the admin, quasi-admin rep for ELA, Pete for math, Wayne for social studies, and Matt for science. And the responsibilities are listed there. We wanted a district-wide representation. So of the four committee members, core members that we have, it's a primary teacher, intermediate level, junior high, and secondary. And part of the responsibilities, we're hoping from now till the end of the year that we can meet as a council at least 3 times, maybe 4 times. The meeting will be aligned with the TST network teams. And I listed out the dates after each content area. Those dates are not our dates. Those are the TST dates. So we'll align our meeting. Our curriculum council will follow the TST meeting. So that way, if we can have at least one of our members be a representative for the BOCES meeting or the network regional meeting to bring the information back, as a council discuss how they want to, what needs to be pushed out to the correct teachers that need it, and then how that should look. And then we left it open that it doesn't have to just be one member of the council attending the regional network. If they all want to attend, which I think science this week, we had 2 teachers. Math last week, I think we would have had a high school and elementary, but we had 1 elementary. And then obviously the other dates are coming up. Let's see. And then the intent is, one, to be able to share out any state updates. But then the work locally is looking at our needs, that guaranteed and viable curriculum, K-12, pre-K-12, and what kind of professional development, looking at the data, being able to identify where our kids are at and what do we need to do instructionally to support them best. So, and then, Brett and I will be talking about how does this group, how can he use and leverage some of the people out of these councils for his strategic district level team. So, any questions about that? And I put this intent, identifying intensifying interventions in, partly it was for me to just kind of summarize. Sarah and I talked this through. The work that the elementary school is doing and has been doing with their intervention block, that's been running fairly smoothly. This year it looks a little different. Wayne's charge this year was to help the high school create that intervention plan for grades 7-12. Sarah and I sat in on this workshop, and what it has us thinking about is how do we go even more like fine grained? Like, how do we get to not just saying we know our students struggle, their vocabulary base isn't really strong, but for individual students, what is the challenge? What's the need? It has us thinking about iReady as a diagnostic, gives us the domains that align to the standards. But then what are we using for that next step? iReady can identify which students are at level or tier 2 or tier 3, but then what are we going to use to really find out then, well, what is it about phonics that student really struggles with, or at the high school level, what is it about comprehension that they really struggle with, so that we can, one, identify, and then two, how do we intensify and help get to, closing that gap for the students with their skills. So has us asking a lot of questions. It was good. And I think Sarah actually came right back. You guys had a meeting and she started asking questions of the teachers based on the workshop that we sat in. And then the last part we'll talk about afterwards. The only thing, I'll give you a little preview. Total number of meetings, I have 16 here, but it's really not, it's 15. But we'll talk after when we go to executive.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah.
And report from Chris.
The one thing I noticed on Chris's, somebody asked the question about school tax collection. She does have a statement right in there.
Look at that. Good job, Chris.
Yeah.
76%. I feel like that's pretty normal.
Well, this next sentence says slightly above.
There you go. And Mike's log. And Mr. Sutherland's.
And I want to start with some good news. So we had the asbestos inspection, and again, there was parts of the crawl space that had been just closed off for fear of asbestos. Once we actually had it inspected, not that bad. So we can go down there, it's a quick cleanup, not a whole abatement. And then we also had them look at the place where we were concerned was the oldest wing, which is the middle school wing, and got up in the ceiling and really found no need for alarm, no real asbestos stuff. So that's going to be not only help us work quicker, safer, and cheaper. So all good news. I mentioned to you earlier the Tioga County Coalition, which is a group of superintendents that are in Tioga County because we all belong to different BOCES. We split up between 3 different BOCES. They used to meet regularly, and we just started up again after COVID. It was a great meeting. When I look at the bullets I put of the main points that I came away with, it looks like it was a really downer group, but that wasn't the atmosphere at all. They were a good group, and supportive. And it's all things we know, and we did talk about working together, having similar expectations, if not exactly the same, for sports, because we have more and more difficulty getting people who want to officiate games, and they complain about the fans, and that's something that's been deteriorating over years, but we can get it better as we all have the same expectations. And maybe if someone's asked not to come to a game in Candor, we can use it the same way extradition laws work from state to state and country to country. We'll say, well, you're not going to the game in Tioga either, and they'll back us up, we'll back them up. Something to put a little more teeth, or, and also to get the fans, when they're behaving well, back to the games quicker. I don't want to say 3 games and then we have 3 away games, so they're going to those, but then they can't come here. We'd rather get it more streamlined and consistent. Hopefully that will make things better. We did talk about Cambridge Central School District losing its appeal, and then the state head came out with a memo today that we'll talk more about how we're going to respond to it with different schools' logos. And again, Tom Zuber talked about it and talked about our reserves. The cost of everything's going up, and you can't always budget for it. So we need to have a reserve plan. We're not the only ones in that boat. Things have always gotten more expensive throughout the school year. Not at the rate we're seeing now, though. Inflation and just cost of shipping, everything is really, just becoming more and more difficult to deal with. Another happy note, College Now partnership is alive and strong. We had 5 students who were interested. I talked to Jason this week. He thinks it's going to be 4 that should graduate this year with an associate's degree. So that's great. And the more we can remove barriers, I'm sure we'll see that increase, which is good for everybody. And then we had talked about a before and after school program. I let you know that we look both at starting one in-house and looking outside to have someone run, lease faithfulness and do that. Mr. Ahart and I have been busy doing that. There aren't too many outside agencies, but there's one that comes very highly recommended. I would love to expand. We're meeting with them again tomorrow. We've met with them once. Looking at doing it ourselves, that would be a longer process. It would take us longer to jump through all the hoops. It wouldn't even be state ed. It's Child and Family Services, and they don't communicate. So we'd have to start the process brand new, get our licenses separate from running a school. The program we talked to, I want to make sure I get their name right. It's Healthy Kids. Would be very interested in hiring local and hiring people who are also employed with the school, which is great. But they'd be able to expedite getting those people certified and fingerprinted, which you'd have to do all over again because it's a different agency that regulates them. So that's as much. I mean, I'm optimistic about it. I don't have anything hard to report to you today, but.
Excellent. Thanks for taking that and running with it.
Yeah.
It's really going to be a huge help for parents. Any other board comments?
I'd like to compliment Kim Nichols and Christine Pierce and Sarah Loomis, who presented at our BOCES School Board Association. Meets once a month on Friday following the superintendents. And they presented on the summer school program, which was really, it was outstanding and so unique in the population that can come versus another school district presented. And theirs were all for kids who were challenged, and much perfect for them. But what we had, I think people's eyes went, whoa. So, and hopefully once the grant money is gone, that we'll be able to maintain that program, because I've talked to teachers at their open house and their comments, those who either worked there or had kids who had attended, and the difference of the kids coming in and feeling comfortable was the main thing. That we were early in the year, so academically I don't know, but they felt that the kids really were at home when they showed up for school in September. So, and thank you, you guys.
Yeah, Sarah did it.
Gold
Sarah did the
stars.
presentation. She did a nice job.
And this group that have a board member go to, or someone in the community to represent the school board, according to our state representative of School Board Association, we're the only district or only BOCES that has such an organization where people can come in and share their what's going on in their home districts and present programs. So it was interesting. So good news.
Since Holly wasn't here, I just wanted to give a final shout out to all the fall sports teams that really did excellent this year. I'm looking at the write-up so I don't forget any. Soccer, or varsity boys soccer, boys and girls cross country, volleyball made sectionals, and then inspect football did make it sectionals. Running into Tioga is a tough first sectional draw. But excellent job. It was a great fall of watching sports. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy the time away. Unless our visitors want to say anything else.
And I have one
Yes,
something
Brett.
I'd like to pitch in there as well. Kind of go back to one of the things that Brett brought up earlier regarding some of the behavior or poor behavior, I guess, at some of our sporting contests. I had an opportunity to attend the Section 4 sportsmanship meeting the other night that was held at Johnson City High School. There were superintendents there, there were coaches there, athletic directors there, and there were players there. So apparently this is starting to become a movement a little bit, maybe partnering up with the Tyler Coalition that you mentioned earlier. The really cool thing that I thought was great was that Candor was well represented at the meeting. There were several school districts that had no one there. Candor had Mr. Raymond and his family there, but there were 2 football players. We had 4 volleyball players. Our volleyball coach was there. A couple of other Candor parents were there. So I just thought it was great that Candor was well represented at a meeting that I hope is going to become very, very important moving forward in the future. And I believe Mr. Bryant, Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, is planning to hold or host future sportsmanship meeting
It's hoping to
evenings.
do it regionally.
Regionally,
So,
trying to gain some more notoriety or attention.
And I agree. And, Holly was there and it was really great. Like I said, we were very well, I'd say we were better represented than almost any other district
I would agree.
there. And I guess I'm going to say disappointing as a Section 4 member of the executive board is that there were schools right there, right within 10 minutes that didn't show up to it. So it's just one of those things that we got to start making sportsmanship a priority. And, Mr. Bryant's really, he's taken it to task. He's taken it very personal. And it's his responsibility as the executive director to really hold people responsible for their sportsmanship or poor sportsmanship. But to support that, he's also going to go around, the west, the east, north, south of Section 4. And he'll do the same types of meetings like he did the other day. He said his concern was I'm going to show up there and no one else will be there, He did send it there. But so he said, I think what do you say, 70 people were there about approximately. So he said it's a good start, but he'd really like to fill the auditorium at some point.
Where was the meeting physically?
It was in Johnson City.
Yeah.
Yep, it was physically, we went there and
I think the students were surprised they had to do the PSA.
they were a little surprised. Yeah, I know my boys were. Devin the whole time's like, I'm not going out. I'm not going out. He went out. But,
They made him read a sportsmanship message.
yeah, they each had a message that they talked out for the crowd. So it was good. It was good for him. After he did it, he was glad he did it. It's just in that moment. And he said to me, he goes, Dad, next time you got to let me know. I'm like, I didn't know that was going to happen. I said, but if you knew, you probably wouldn't have gone. He goes, no, I would have gone. I just wouldn't have been as nervous because I would have prepared things. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Great. We are out of business, 8:20.
Do we need to sign the?
Exactly.
Okay.
Did y'all
Well,
sign?
we're not out of business. We gotta go back to that.
Wait, one for Johnson,
I thought I could send it.